He's not filibustering. He's not posturing. Lindsey Graham just froze a bipartisan spending deal and told both parties, you don't move forward until we deal with the real problem. This isn't about funding. It's about lawlessness, accountability, and who's actually running the country right now. If you're new here and want clear breakdowns of what really happens in Congress, consider subscribing.
Thank you to my colleague, Senator Schmidt. Well said, well done. It's a very logical argument about what's at stake. So I want to tell you where I'm at. I'm an appropriator, and I can never remember putting a hold on an appropriations bill ever before. And I'll tell you why I've done it. But I also want to acknowledge the appropriations process and Chairman Collins. We've got a package of bills that are bipartisan. From a fiscal conservative side, they spend less than the CR. To all the people in our conference who demand the appropriations do better, we delivered, but you've given no acknowledgement. You keep saying stuff that's unrealistic. You push the system in a way that nobody can deliver. Politically, you're dumb as a rock. I'm not going to mention you. You know who you are, but you probably don't if you're that dumb. We're asking sometimes to make points that are not good for the Republican Party or the country. Might be good online, might help you raise a few bucks, but I'm tired of that. Count me out. Senator Collins, you've worked with Democrats and Republicans, and before us is a package of bills that I've all supported. Why am I holding? What happened? What happened in Minnesota has to be addressed. Senator Schmidt laid out the choices. I'm arguing to both parties, we need to do a little soul searching here. The man who was shot, I've seen the video. It needs to be investigated. I'm sure it will. There are things being done on the ICE side that a lot of Americans are uncomfortable with. I get that. To my Democratic colleagues, if you want to try to make it more professional, count me in. If you want to have more accountability, count me in. But your rhetoric, count me out. If you were from a foreign country, Senator Schmidt, listening to the debate on the cable channels, you thought we were the Gestapo. Have you had any stories about a guy getting his finger bit off? The ICE agents and the Border Patrol and all federal law enforcement involved in this has been slandered and smeared. And to the Republican Party, where have you been? Count me in for holding them accountable. Where are you at, leaders? Where have you been? These people are patriotic. They're away from home. These crowds follow them to their hotel. They intimidate their families. The people pushing this are nuts. They're not normal. The man who got shot, investigate. But do not tell me that he didn't have an agenda. Look what happened 10 days before. Maybe excessive force, let's look. But don't play a game like the people out in the streets that are harassing ICE, that they're not part of the problem. The real problem is not Kristi Noem. You can say whether she's done a good job or not, Stephen Miller. The real problem is that there are 12 states in America who openly defy federal law. Why are we dealing with this? During the 4 years of Joe Biden, you obliterated our borders. You let anybody and everybody that could get here. You created chaos, and a lot of Americans have been destroyed by your illegal immigration policy, and all you want to talk about over there are the cops. Senator Schumer, you blame me, I blame you. I work with you on comprehensive immigration reform. It's not I can't get there, but when you got in charge with Biden, you did everything conservatives were afraid of. You ignored the law. Has anybody mentioned Laken Riley lately? The Laken Riley Act was a great piece of bipartisan legislation by Senator Britt from Alabama. We all came together to say, no more Laken Rileys. Well, what are we talking about? Laken Riley was killed by an illegal immigrant who was in detention in Texas and released because they had no bed space. Under the law, the DHS secretary cannot mass release people. They have to do it on a case-by-case basis. They were releasing people by the thousands. This young lady is dead because they had no place to hold him and they let him loose, knowing he might be dangerous. He makes his way to Georgia and he murders her. 1 year ago, yesterday, we signed into law the Laken Riley Act. To the Republican Party, why didn't we talk about that? Why didn't we remind the American people that part of what we're doing here is to not go back to the Joe Biden ways? We made a mistake here. We're on the run in an 80% issue, and I'm tired of it. We should be reminding the American people we're different than our colleagues on the other side. We're not going back to Joe Biden policies. You can be unnerved by what's happening in Minneapolis. I get it. But the problem is you want Band-Aid solutions. We're going to have a vote on the floor of the United States Senate in 2 weeks as to whether or not we should criminalize the act of local and state officials who willfully disobey laws on the books because it's good politics for them. If we could go back in time, we probably should have put George Wallace in jail for defying civil rights. These laws were on the books long before Trump. What is the right answer when a state or a mayor says, I don't like this federal law, I'm not going to do it because it's good politics for me? I think you risk going to jail. We cannot live in a country this way, where you get to pick and choose the laws you don't like. You can't have 50-state immigration policy. Sanctuary city policy is killing this country. To the 12 states that are doing this, stop. How are you ever going to fix illegal immigration if there are pockets of the country that if an illegal immigrant can get there, they're home free? That's what Senator Schmidt was saying. If you want to reform ICE, count me in. But if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, then you're really not serious about solving it. I will not lift my hold on this bill until I get guaranteed a vote on my legislation that would criminalize the conduct going forward. And what conduct am I talking about? State and local officials openly defying federal law that's been on the books for decades, incentivizing more illegal immigration, massive taxpayer ripoff, and a breakdown of law and order. To these 12 states, you're screwing it up for the rest of us. You need to change your policies and comply with the law that's been on the books for decades, and this should be a punishment. To me, what you're doing is you're inciting chaos. You're putting people's lives at risk. You literally should go to jail if you will not enforce the law, abide by the law. What a novel concept. You break the law, you go to jail. Except you're an elected official, I guess. We have an exception. If you're doing what liberals like, then you actually can break the law. No, you can't. I want to vote on it. And if you got a better idea, count me in. That's my idea. If you can think of a better idea, let me know. If you got ideas about reforming ICE to make it more professional, count me in. But what we will not do in 2 weeks is leave unaddressed the root cause of the problem. And that is 4 years of the Biden administration, 11 million people coming to the country, only God knows why they're here and where they're from, and the chaos they have created. Laken Riley is one example of too many where somebody died because of stupid, dangerous policies. President Trump, like him or not, is trying to lower the temperature in Minneapolis. Tom Homan, good job. But he's not going to quit, and I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up on undoing the damage. I've had it. I've worked with Democrats and Republicans to fix illegal immigration. Now you're doing everything to make it worse. I am not going to sit on the sidelines and not get in this debate and say, sanctuary city policy is dangerous, it's insane, it needs to be fixed. You can convince me ICE can be made better. I don't think I will ever convince you to abandon sanctuary cities because you're wedded to it on the Democratic side. Let's have this debate. In 2026, if you want to go back to Biden, vote for the Democrats. In 2026, if you want to try to get the country back on a rational footing, vote for us. We're not perfect, but they're not either. So, what would it take to lift my hold? A vote, not an outcome. I'm like any other senator. I don't demand a lot, but I am demanding that my solution to fixing sanctuary cities at least have a vote. You're going to put ideas on the floor to make ICE better. I want to put an idea on the floor to get the root cause of the problem, and that's not unreasonable. Vote any way you want. I'm asking this body to guarantee me that vote, and we move forward. Second thing.
Graham opens by doing something almost unheard of for him. He admits it plainly. He's an appropriator, and in all his years, he's never put hold on an appropriations bill, ever. But this time, he says he had no choice. He gives credit where it's due. The current funding package is bipartisan. It spends less than the continuing resolution. Fiscal conservatives asked for better, and leadership delivered. Yet instead of acknowledgement, Graham says some in his own party keep demanding the impossible, pushing the system in ways that can't be delivered just to score points online or fundraise. Then he pivots to why this moment matters. What happened in Minnesota, Graham says, must be investigated. A man was shot. Accountability matters. Professionalism matters. If Democrats want IC reform, he's in. If they want better standards, he's in. But what he won't accept is rhetoric that paints federal agents like some kind of secret police. He says turn on cable news, and you'd think IC was a Gestapo. Meanwhile, real violence against agents gets ignored. Finger-bitten off incidents. Agents followed to hotels. Families intimidated. Graham doesn't mince words. He says the people pushing this chaos aren't normal, and leadership on both sides has failed to confront it. Then comes the core charge. The real problem isn't individual officials. It's not Kristi Noem. It's not Stephen Miller. The real problem, Graham says, is that 12 states openly defy federal immigration law, sanctuary policies that make enforcement impossible, and turn parts of the country into magnets for illegal immigration. He lays the blame squarely at the Biden administration's feet. For years, borders obliterated, millions let in, chaos created, American communities paying the price. And while Democrats want to talk endlessly about policing ICE, Graham points to the victims they refuse to talk about. He brings up Laken Riley, killed by an illegal immigrant who should never have been released. Released because there was no bed space. Released in violation of the law. 1 year ago, Graham reminds the chamber, Congress passed the Laken Riley Act to stop exactly this. So why aren't Republicans hammering that point home? Graham says this is an 80% issue, and Republicans are running from it. He says the country needs to hear clearly that we are not going back to Biden's immigration policies. Not now. Not ever. Then he drops the line in the sand. In 2 weeks, the Senate will vote on whether to criminalize state and local officials who willfully defy federal immigration law. Graham says that vote must happen. You cannot have 50 different immigration systems. You cannot pick and choose which laws you like. Sanctuary policies, he says, are killing this country. And until he gets a guaranteed vote on that legislation, not an outcome, just a vote, his hold stays. He closes this section with a challenge. Reform IC if you want. Improve accountability if you want. But if you refuse to address the root cause, sanctuary cities and lawless states, then you're not serious about fixing anything. Like, subscribe, and share if you want more real accountability moments like this. Because this debate isn't over.